Good evening. Hi. So great to see you all. We still have some people finding their way in, but in the spirit of being on time, we'll try to get started. Thank you. I'm Dana Pierce. I'm a counselor here at the high school, and it is truly an honor to welcome you to our third FM Community Big Read. To say that we are excited to have you here is probably a bit of an understatement. We are really, really excited that you're here. So we have this Big Read creation team that I'd like to introduce you to, or at least mention their names. Some of them are here in person. Some of them you met out there when you were picking up your name tags and or books. Some are virtual, but I just want to recognize them because we've got this great team of people who've been working really hard behind the scenes for the last couple months to make this happen. So if you're here physically, stand up if you will, please. Amy Raymond, Carrie Hammond, she's in the booth back there, I think. Hi, Carrie. Denise Mans, Kate Stewart, Heather Simpson, Christina Jenneray, you'll hear from later this evening. Mary Halloran, also you'll hear from her. Laurel Pritchard welcomed you up there. Laurel, there you are. Becky Hartman-Wade, Angela Gage, and Karen Hance are manning our table out there. And we also have two other FM Zen members helping us out tonight as small conversations facilitators. We have Dee Brennan with us and Chrissy Monaco. Where are you, Chrissy? She's in the back there. So welcome, everybody. So a little bit about our plan for tonight. We'd like to spend about 45 to 50 minutes with you here, just introducing you to the book and also to what the Big Read experience looks like. And then for the remainder of the evening, we'll be breaking down into smaller conversations in classrooms or stay online for discussion. So we have all of you in person. We probably have about 40, 45 people online as well. And we're happy, however you are here, we're happy to have you. So welcome back to those of you who are past big readers. Can I see a show of hands? That's great, thank you. And to those of you who are new, there's plenty of you here too. We really are excited that you're giving us a chance. And again, just, we're live streaming this event, we're recording it. It's our hope that we'll post the presentation on our website in the near future. How about we do this? I think that the live stream camera is actually that one, right? So how about everybody look over there and wave to our neighbors and friends who are online. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. So let's get started, right? We know how fortunate we are to live in a school district that values education and cares so deeply about students and families. We know that. We're grateful to have the active support of our district leaders. Many of them are participating in the Big Read with us, and they are here this evening, so thank you for being here. We also have a number of Board of Education members who are here joining us, and again, we thank you for being here. We know that everyone's time is valuable. I've met several of you already who have said, I need to be in two places at once, and yet you're choosing to be here. I'm guessing we could all be in maybe 5 or 10 places at once to get it all done, but you're choosing to be here, and we are so incredibly grateful to you for that. Trust me when I say to you, this kickoff event is just the first step in what we hope will be an ongoing process that includes education, conversation, collaboration, and action, all in service to our students. Because we haven't done a Big Read in a while, or because it might be brand new to you, we thought we'd give you a little background so you know how we got here and what lies ahead. Believe it or not, for the past 10 years, there's been a group of faculty working mostly behind the scenes to support emotional health and wellness for our students and our staff. We call ourselves FM Zen. During these 10 years, we've engaged in topics that are pertinent to our students, things like building efficacy and resilience, reframing how we think about stress, mindfulness, and the impact of cell phones and other technology on emotional and social well-being. And that one we actually started a while back. it's continuing. As part of our own work and education, every summer FM Zen has a professional book read. And we use that as a tool for our learning. And then what we learn, we pass along by using it with our students, sharing with our colleagues. And in the case of the Big Read, we invite you to join us. We read Never Enough over the summer. Let me show you a picture. This is a picture. What a good looking group, right? Anyway, this is a picture of some of our FM Zen members who read this past summer. And just so you know, it was a resounding yes, we should do a big read, because we all felt really strongly about it. So that's a little bit of how we got here. So you might be thinking, why now? Like, why is this important now? And there are several answers to that. I think probably layers of how we might answer that, so we'd like to spend some time on that. It's been a while since our last big read. We did one in 2022 of Mark Brackett's Permission to Feel. Since that time, as I'm sure you know, our greater school community has been through a lot. We've experienced incredible loss, so much trauma. Our students, our staff, our parents and guardians and other caretakers for our children and teens have all given voice to the increasing pressure our students feel on their path to success. There's not a day that goes by when we don't have mental health and social emotional well-being as a central focus in our district. When FM Zen read this book over the summer, we felt like we were reading about FM, along with the hundreds and or thousands of other schools like us across the country. So why now? It's easy to answer that because it's personal, because we love this community. We care deeply for our students and families. So take a minute right now, just look around the room. Notice your friends, your neighbors, colleagues maybe. Perhaps these are some people you have yet to meet with whom you may form a connection during the big read. This is a powerful group, born of love and care and hope, and that's why now. Now, Becky Hartman-Wade is going to come up and share some other reasons why this book is so important to use for us now.
Thanks, Dana. So, as you heard, a lot of us who read this book over the summer really felt it was talking about us, and we did a survey that suggests that a lot of you are probably going to feel the same way as you're reading this book. A few pages into the book, you'll read, or if you're reading ahead, have already read, about a survey that the author did with 6,000 parents across the nation. And it was asking about attitudes and different concerns that they might have. And so we asked similar questions to you guys in our survey. And if you look up here, you'll see that our numbers are pretty close to the numbers that she got, particularly in terms of statements about getting into selective colleges being one of the most important ingredients to later life happiness, and wishing that today's childhood was less stressful for kids. And so it's not just us in this room and those of us behind the screens that have expressed these concerns. Last school year, we did a survey from the district to gather information about our school culture and climate. And the third recommendation that came out of the parent survey was to address academic pressure felt by many students, and noted that parents wanted their children to excel in their own unique ways, but without the competitiveness. And so that really speaks to a lot of what we are reading about in this book and what we'll hear in terms of the concerns that are widespread both within our community and other communities like ours. It's notable that 78% of the parents who responded to the survey had said that they're satisfied or very satisfied with the district. Another 13% were neutral. And so really we felt that the majority of our community see and believe in the good work that we're doing here and the things that we want to achieve. And so our Big Read creation team felt that it was important to share this because as we do this work, this belief serves as our foundation. It's solid and stable and the basis on which we can make some shifts and make some changes and hopefully make us a healthier school and community. And so thinking about the question of why now, this book speaks to a concern that keeps coming up. Widening our lens, it's not just this group, our school, our community, and it's not just impacting the kids. The Surgeon General issued an advisory in August that states parents have a profound impact on the health of our children and the health of society. He went on to talk about long-term stressors, so things that we've heard a lot about in terms of health and safety and finances, as well as challenges that are unique to parents currently in terms of technology, social media, and the mental health concerns. And really, he talked about shifting how we prioritize the parent and caregiver mental health and well-being. And so when talking about our survey in the book, Jennifer Wallace had stated that surfacing these feelings could be a first step toward dismantling them. And when we're thinking about why now, we're looking to take those first steps and work toward positive change in the community that we all care for deeply. And so now Christina will come up and give us a little bit more of a broader perspective.
So the Surgeon General's advisory really points to what we feel is a foundational point of both the book and also of this presentation. And that is that there are some really big, broad, historical, socioeconomic trends that are taking place here, that are at play, that we don't have control over, that are bigger than any family, bigger than any school, and bigger than any community. And we don't want to forget that because sometimes we feel very powerless, and sometimes we have to accept that there are things outside of our control. And to kind of give us a little bit of perspective, now's the time for my favorite part of the presentation, which is a little bit of history. I bet you can't guess what I teach. So what I'm about to say are big and broad trends. There's not 100% truth in everything I'm saying. But when we think back to the post-World War II period, the whole world had just gone through this incredible trauma. And yet here in America, there were some positive things happening. Many Americans were experiencing socioeconomic opportunities that they had never had before. For instance, we had soldiers coming back from war who could perhaps take advantage of the GI Bill and have access to low-cost loans for houses or low-cost loans for college. Many GIs were the very first to go to college in their family. At the same time, business is booming. I mean, how can you not when your competitors are all bombed to smithereens, right? It's really easy to sell cars. At the same time, in the 50s and 60s, we have labor unions at their height, right? Great participation by workers, which translates into higher wages, better benefits. But we don't live in the post-World War II era anymore. Right? We live in the post-1980s period, historians look at, and there are some very different trends happening. Cost of housing and the cost of college have continued to increase, making it seem like the two things that most people look at for kind of knowing whether they've achieved the American dream seem more and more out of reach. Obviously, we know labor unions are not as popular as they once were, not as strong as they once were. You have the rise of right-to-work states, less participation by workers. And, of course, the competition came back, right? They recovered, and we even have other countries that were never even a factor, countries like China that are now competing with us. So what does this all mean? Well, what it leads to is, to sum it all up in one word, uncertainty. Right? Many Americans feel very uncertain about the future, not just for themselves, but also for their children. And that uncertainty, that fear over whether their children are going to have happy, safe, secure, financially secure futures is very worrying to many parents. makes them feel like, again, that they have a lack of control. And this is particularly the case in countries where maybe the social safety network is not quite as developed as in other countries. It makes that sense of uncertainty even more acute. So what we're going to turn to now is Mary, who's going to share a little bit. Now you've got a little bit of history, big, broad history. She's going to talk a little bit about some work that she did in the classroom.
Well, and certainly not just work that I've done, but that the district has done. So clearly there are larger historical and social contexts for some of the some of the struggles our students are facing. But we're talking about the students in front of us here at FM, and we see stress and anxiety on the rise, and we started seeing this really 10 years ago when FM Zen started. So in our building and as a district, we've enacted many initiatives to try to help support the well-being of our students, many of which you might be familiar with, some of which are on the screen here. Some of them are district-wide, so wellness days at our schools, the Positivity Project program, therapy dogs that are now in all of our buildings. Here at the high school, we have clubs that promote awareness of suicide, of eating disorders. The district staff has undergone a great deal of professional development to help us to be more aware of and respond better to student mental health concerns. Many teachers have worked mindfulness and social emotional well-being into our curriculums. And we have increased the staff in our district to support mental health. So all buildings have school counselors, family school liaisons, and school psychologists, in addition to our district psychologist and our district mental health educator. We also have 3 student engagement specialists at the elementary schools to supplement mental health support. So as Dana said, we really care deeply about our students, and we're trying really hard to support them. And hopefully this experience of the Big Read is something that continues that work. So let's focus on the book now and hear a little bit about and from the author, Jennifer Wallace. She's an award-winning journalist, and this is a clip of an interview with her on Good Morning America. Sorry, I really do know how to use technology most of the time. Well, the ad is muted. Hopefully the video isn't also muted. Oh, okay. Eat the rainbow.
Expectations have risen dramatically in the last few decades.
And no one recognizes that more than our next guest. After seeing alarming reports of anxiety, depression, and substance abuse or disorder among children in high-performing schools, Jennifer Wallace wanted to figure out how achievement culture has become so toxic, and she documents it all in her latest book. Please welcome award-winning journalist and author Jennifer V. Wallace. Thank you so much for being with us.
Good to see you.
So for your book, Never Enough, you set out to find how caretakers and parents can raise healthy children who also achieve. So what did you find?
Right, so for the book, I went in search of the healthy strivers. I wanted to know what, if anything, they had in common. What was home life like? What did their parents focus on? And what I found they had in common, it boils down to this idea of mattering. They had a high level of mattering. They felt valued for who they were, deep at their core. And they were also relied on to add meaningful value back to their parents, to their schools, to their communities. The kids who seemed to be suffering the most were those who felt like their mattering, their value, was contingent on their performance.
So what surprised you most about your research and your findings?
Well, as a parent, the thing that surprised me most is that the #1 intervention for any child in distress is to make sure the primary caregivers, that their well-being, their mental health, their support system is intact. Because a child's resilience rests on their caregiver's resilience. And caregiver resilience rests on the depth and support of their relationships. So it's not, go have a bubble bath, go download this meditation app. That's great for reducing stress, but that's not going to give us the resilience we need to be first responders to our kids' struggles.
Oh, that's such an interesting way to put it. First responders to our children. This is so hard for parents because I think we're all doing the best that we can and we want to set our kids up to succeed. What are some things that we can do as parents to sort of help our children?
Yes. So I would say the top of the list is to minimize criticism. Be careful about how we give feedback to make sure to separate the deed from the doer. Also prioritize affection. Greet your child at least once a day the way the family dog greets your family when you walk out and when they walk in, just with total joy. Also get a PhD in them. The sense of self is developed less by being praised, which can feel like pressure, and more by being known for who they uniquely are deep inside. And then the last tip, I think, is just to lead with lunch. When they walk in the door after school, instead of peppering them with questions, how'd the test go? What do you have for homework? Lead with lunch. Just ask, what did they have for lunch today? Which sends the signal that you care about them as a whole person, their whole well-being.
I love how you say, watch how you criticize your children. Words are very powerful, and kids, they don't forget. You made some own changes in your home. Never worry alone.
Oh, yeah. So this was a tip that I read from Ned Hallowell, who's a psychiatrist. And so we've adopted it as our family mantra, never worry alone. True for my teenagers as well as for myself. When you're worried, when you're anxious, when you're feeling down, reach out. Have the courage to reach out and share that anxiety with somebody else, and it will reduce.
Jennifer, can you please come back? We like you.
I feel like it's such invaluable advice
Yes.
for parents, and we're seeing this epidemic of children just really struggling. Clearly something has to change.
There's hope. I saw it in the families I met. There's hope.
Just in time for school as well. Thank you. Back to school there. And never enough. When achievement culture becomes toxic and what we can do about it is available everywhere that books are sold. Again, thank you very much and good to see you.
Both.
Now more than ever, kids and teens are under enormous pressure to be high achievers, from school to sports and extra.
See, I do have a whole team here. They're all like whispering to me, go to the next slide. It's all about connections, folks. Anyway, some of you actually may have seen a similar slide when you came for the first or the second big read, but I think it's important to talk about what this is, what this experience is, and what it's not. So what it is, it's a shared experience. We're all here because we love and care about our students. We're worried about our kids. This experience will allow us to learn together, to reflect together, perhaps to share some language around this, and hopefully make some change together. So as different as we may be, we're wanting to use this text to make connections and to make a difference. This is also an open, non-judging conversation, and this goes along with what it's not. So it's not a forum for judgment or for blame. And this is bigger than any one of us, as Christina shared with us in that history lesson. Making a difference requires all of us, and then some. Many of you have said to me, I shared this, I texted my friends, I invited my neighbors. That's really important. That's how this word will get out. We know, as Becky talked about, that parents are facing incredible challenges that impact your mental health and well-being. We know that being a professional educator has changed over the years, and teachers are burning out, with about 40% likely to leave the field within their first 2 years. We know that growing young people is hard work. We can all be very judging about that. So if we're honest, we know we can judge each other, and we really judge ourselves. Neither has a benefit. So I would challenge all of us throughout this year and throughout this Big Read experience to come to the table with open hearts, with the belief that we're all doing the best we can with what we have on any given day. That interviewer said that really well, I think. We need to come to the table like that and know, too, that that's true of all the other people around us. Everybody's doing their best. That belief lends itself to some compassion, and I think we could all use some more of that these days. So let's be gentle as we move through this. There will most likely be difficult conversations. We are bound to disagree, and things we need to reflect upon as individuals and as a school and a community might be difficult. But we're here, and we're going to do it. Let's do our best to have those conversations in a space of love and respect and with great care for one another. The Big Read and these conversations are about empowerment and hope. This conversation begins here, but its potential lives way beyond the walls of any elementary school, middle school, high school. About hope, Brene Brown, who's the author of Daring Greatly, which is one of the books that FM Zen has read in the past, she says that hope is a way of thinking and of acting, that hope is born of struggle. It's about doing hard things, having hard conversations, and coming out on the other side, having been changed for the better. The Big Read in this text, though important, it's not the answer. It would be nice. Many of us are fixers, right? We are looking for the fix. We want to take away our kids' stress and anxiety, ours too. Maybe not take it away, but reduce it, make it feel more manageable. We'd like to fix some of the chaos in the world, I'm sure. We're looking for answers for lots of things. So we've not found the answer. But what we have found and what we offer is the potential to support our community and culture, perhaps to even shift it a little bit for all of us, for our well-being. There are things that we as adults can do that will result in our young people being healthier, and that makes this worth doing. One more thing that it's not fully defined. So what does that mean? It means it's evolving, and each Big Read experience is different. We love that. It's pretty cool. It means that we're meeting tonight for the kickoff, and we've set aside 2 other evenings for you to come back and talk with us together. But we're also guessing that there may be groups that, like FM 10 years ago, will form organically. So perhaps there are conversations within your extended family, within your friend group, among neighbors. Perhaps you decide that you feel so strongly about this work that you'd like to bring it to your faith communities and ask for a forum to gather, perhaps. Those are just a couple thoughts, things that have come up in the past, and you may have other ideas, so please tell us, reach out to us, and if we can be of help, we'd like to be. This is a really good Big Read creation team. We're pretty much up for anything. It is an adventure, and so we'll see how it goes, right? So Becky will return now and come up and share some of the results from the Big Read Welcome Survey that we sent out to you.
So earlier I briefly mentioned some of the results of the survey, and I want to take a minute to thank you for completing it. Our creation team really appreciate all the time and the effort and truly the thoughtfulness that you put into sharing this information with us. It has helped us to understand where you're coming from, and we wanted to share some of the information so that you can hear the thoughts of some of your fellow Big Readers. And so one of the things we asked about was ranking your concerns for our students. And here's what you said. As you can see, the top of the list was our young people meeting their own and others' expectations. And in your own words, the greatest concerns are students putting academic achievement over their own health and well-being, and students not realizing they are enough exactly where they are at the moment. You wanted to know how we can make changes in our community because we need the change. And I think that's one of the things the creation team felt strongly as we were reading this book, and that you guys echoed as you were sharing this information with us. And so that brings us to your hopes for the Big Read. Many of your responses reflect our hopes for the Big Read as well. We want to come together, make connections, have those hard conversations, and hopefully make a difference. As Dana said, we don't have the answer, but it's a way for us to take those first steps that I talked about earlier, and that your feedback showed you hope to achieve in joining our group on this adventure. And so now Mary's going to talk a little bit more about some more of the information that we gathered.
So in the book, Wallace describes what she calls toxic achievement culture, which might at first glance sound a bit like an oxymoron because we think of achievement as something that's a really good thing. We want our kids to achieve, we want to achieve, but toxic is obviously a pretty bad thing. So what does it mean when those two words go together? And it's really a question of what happens when students feel that their value is tied to how well they do, when their passions and their priorities dwindle in favor of a very narrow focus on trying to be perfect at everything. So Wallace describes toxic achievement in this way, and I think it's a quote that's worth reading. She says, "Our kids are absorbing the idea that their worth is contingent upon their performance, their GPA, the number of social media followers they have, their college brands, not for who they are deep at their core. They feel they only matter to the adults in their lives, their peers, the larger community, if they are successful." And then, of course, many students have a very narrow idea of what success means and looks like and is supposed to be. So toxic achievement culture may have to do with academics, and it can also relate to how they feel they are seen publicly, like through social media. As you heard in the video, this idea appears over and over in the book, the idea of mattering and how important it is for kids to feel like they matter for who they are and not what they do. It's really pretty powerful. So I actually used an excerpt from Never Enough with my 9th graders. I'm an English teacher here at the high school. I selected a short passage about competition and envy. I thought it would resonate with students, and it really did. We had 2 full days of discussion about a 4-page passage. They had a lot to say. I gave up a follow-up survey to students, and here were some of their responses. First, I asked them about the excerpt itself. So I'm not sure how well you can read that. I'll read the first quote that came from that. One student wrote, "I think this is a good passage for our age because we're just starting high school, where sports and academics get really competitive, and people often forget that it's not the end of the world if they lose one game or get a bad grade on one test." Many students wrote similar things. The second question I asked them was, would you encourage adults in our community to read Never Enough, based on the excerpt they had read? Almost all of them said yes. A few said maybe, but it seems like this passage was really more for students than adults. But of course, we know that the whole book, really, the audience is for adults. One student wrote, "I definitely would recommend adults to read Never Enough because it spreads awareness about hyper-competitiveness and helps adults realize when this happens in our community today. Adults can help students release some of their tension and make our community a more positive environment," which is really what we're aiming for, right? Shifts in our culture and community that can help students feel like they're in an environment of support where they can pursue their loves and passions and who they are. And then I also asked them about hypercompetitiveness and toxic achievement culture. If they see it in their own lives, if they witness that in their peers' lives, if it affects them. A lot of them talked about how much they compare their grades when they get tests back or essays back, and the first thing they do is ask each other what they got, which is a practice I pretty much outlaw in my own classroom. And they see their peers do this. Many also mentioned hypercompetitiveness in sports. So here's a sampling of what they had to say. For example, in that first quote, "Many students think they have to do every extracurricular offered in order to get an award at the end of the year, or to get into a good college and succeed in life," which is a lot of pressure for a teenager. The second and third quotes kind of speak to a sense of yearning to enjoy what they're doing, to enjoy learning for learning's sake. So now Christina is going to talk about a few other student responses to surveys.
So several teachers, including myself, we spent a little bit less time in class, but we did survey our students and asked them specifically if they had ever had experiences where they felt very stressed and overwhelmed by the academic pressure here at school. And I wish I could include so much more than I have on the screen, but the first two quotes in particular stood out to me. The first one really highlights the fact that for many students, there is a perception that honors and AP classes are the expectation. They're not what you opt into because you really enjoy something and you want to learn more about it, but really it seems more like you're failing to live up to an expectation if you choose to opt out. And that was a sentiment that I saw many, many times in their responses. The second quote also really spoke to me because it made me really realize for some of these students, this is a numbers game. And that when you go to a large school with a lot of students, they're not looking at each other as their school community, they're competition out there. And the more students there are, the more competition there is and the pressure that that creates. And so the kind of general sentiment when I ask them, do you think that there is a culture of achievement that can sometimes go awry? Many students, over 85% of my students at least, said that they did feel that at times. And then, of course, we saw some of the results from your own survey earlier in the presentation. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to actually fill that out. We got so many really thought-provoking responses. And I'm not going to go through everything up there, and I wish that we could have included all of them because, again, it was clear that you guys spent time thinking about what you were putting in that survey. And you can see that there's a wide variety of concerns within the community, many of which, as teachers, we also see and feel too. But thank you for filling out that survey. Back to Mary, right?
So we are just about to move into the second part of our evening, but we did want to make sure that you're aware of our next two opportunities to gather, which are on December 3rd and January 14th. Both of these are Tuesday evenings, like this one at the same time. We call these evenings conversations because they will be in small groups to talk about a section of the book that everybody has read for that date. Which you can see that on the slide, but we are also going to give you a bookmark. In a few minutes, you'll receive a bookmark that has the dates and the chapters we'll be reading for those dates. We do ask you that you RSVP for both of those evenings or one of those evenings, whatever you're able to make, so that we can plan the small groups accordingly. When you RSVP, you will also indicate whether you'll participate in person or online via Google Meet. And while we would love to have you for both of these evenings, we know your time is precious and in demand. So you may choose to read the book on your own after tonight and not come to one of the other evenings, but instead discuss and share what you've learned with people in your own circles. Or maybe you'll only be able to come to one of those evenings. However you are able to come and are able to participate, we would love to have you. So Dana will explain how we're going to use the rest of our time this evening.
Okay, everybody doing okay? Yeah, good. Thank you. So with the remaining time left, we'd like to break up into some small groups. So we have 6 rooms and 1 online conversation group. How are you all doing over there? Everybody wave. Let's check in. Thank you. So those of you who are here in person, you'll find a room number on your name tag. That's what that number is. All the rooms are upstairs in our English wing. So let me just give you, nobody get up yet. Let me give directions first. So you'll actually head out of the auditorium, and I'll have our folks who are helping to facilitate head out before you, so you can just sort of follow them as well. But you're going to go out of the auditorium across the foyer to the right, past our library, media center, and then up the stairs. We'd really love it if you would go to the rooms that you're assigned to, so we keep the numbers balanced. Yeah. So, so our online big readers, you'll join the conversation through the Google Meet link we sent you, and Carrie Hammond will be your facilitator. So in each classroom, we have 2 FM Zen facilitators to guide the conversations. We will do our best to finish promptly at 8 p.m. or before. That's sort of up to you, the before part. And as a reminder, please RSVP if you can join us December 3rd. I put my contact information in here, so if you have any questions throughout this Big Read experience, please feel free to contact me. I'm really easy to reach via email, or you could always call the Counseling Center here at the high school, which is my home base. Because we won't be ending our evening together here in the auditorium, I just want to take one more opportunity to thank you again for your participation. It just means the world to us, and we're really excited to be on this journey with you. So let's move to our conversation rooms.